Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to my review of the Savage 110 Precision Rifle chambered in .308 Winchester. In this video, we're going to be going over the features, performance, and most importantly, a discussion of value. First off, why Savage? Savage is one of the big three iconic bolt-action platforms upon which most modern hunting, sporting, and tactical rifles are based. The other two being the Remington 700 and the Tikka. What may be genuinely surprising is that the Savage 10 predates the Remington 700 by 4 years, 1958 versus 1962. The Savage 10 project began as Canada's attempt to offer an alternative to the engineering marvels of control-feed, claw extractor Mauser and Winchester Model 70 actions. The goal was to maintain out-of-box accuracy and user serviceability while sacrificing as little reliability as possible in a push-feed design. As a brief aside, Mauser and Winchester 70 actions remain an absolute joy to cycle, more so than many modern bolt actions, and writers are still reverent when referring to the Winchester 70 as the rifleman's rifle. However, industry trends at the time pushed manufacturers towards more streamlined production. That same pressure led America's Remington and later Finland's Tikka in 1968 to release their own push-feed, ready-to-run platforms, the Remington 700 and the Tikka M76 respectively. These rifles became the benchmark actions against which virtually all future bolt guns would be measured. The triple-digit designation indicates action length. Unlike the original double-digit Model 10 short action, the 110 is a long action. That gives you more flexibility. You can shoot short action cartridges like the .308 Winchester or 7.62x51, or you can step up to long action calibers that share the same bolt face, like the 30-06, with only a barrel change. At its core, this is still the same rifle that Savage started making 67 years ago, but modernized. You get a custom profile heavy barrel with shallow flutes along the front taper, threaded 5/8x24 to accept a muzzle device if you want to swap out the factory brake. The receiver is drilled and tapped for optics, and the bolt includes an oversized bolt knob for better ergonomics. All the steel components are finished in mil-spec Parkerizing. Because of the two-lug bolt, you still do get a 90-degree throw. The action is reasonably smooth to cycle. The most significant modernization is the AccuTrigger, introduced in 2002. It was genuinely a game changer at the time. The trigger is user adjustable from 1.5 to 4 pounds. Another major upgrade is the MDT LSS XL Gen 2 Savage exclusive chassis. The all-aluminum chassis interfaces directly with the recoil lug, eliminating need for traditional bedding. It's secured using 2 proprietary length screws with custom washers. Don't lose them because your local hardware store will have absolutely no idea what you're asking for. The M-LOK forend fully free floats the barrel and provides generous negative relief, so you can mount accessories without ever contacting the barrel. The cheek riser is adjustable for proper head position relative to optic height, and the length of pull is adjusted via plastic spacers in front of the butt pad. You also get sling swivel mounting points and an M-LOK section for a bag rider or monopod. You can swap the stock for an AR buffer tube or folding mechanism. I tried one and returned it because it turned the length of pull into something longer than an M16's. Here's what I've changed from the factory configuration. I replaced the muzzle brake with the suppressor mount, specifically a Griffin Armament taper mount in titanium. I originally ran a Magpul bipod, but based on my trigger time behind it, I would only further recommend it for intermediate caliber rifles. It's just not that stable between shots. I have since swapped to a Fab Defense spike bipod on Picatinny, which is far more appropriate here. I replaced the stiff rubber butt pad with a sort of non-Newtonian material from OBI. My clavicle thanked me. I swapped the factory cheek piece for MDT's candidly and straightforwardly named Elite Cheek Rest that offers a thinner profile for straight-on head alignment when looking through the scope and comfortable neoprene padding. The chassis accepts standard AR grip screws, but not all AR grips will fit, especially those with beaver tails. I replaced the fine but boring MDT rubberized AR grip with a Xeno True 90 polymer grip, which gives me a perfectly straight back trigger pull without wrist strain. I occasionally run a bag rider. This is just a polymer M-LOK section from eBay. The rifle came with an EGW 20 MOA rail, which I replaced with MDT's rail. This is one area where the platform is showing its age.
The receiver-to-optic interface simply isn't as robust as modern designs where the rail is integral to the action or uses wider fasteners like on the SIG Cross. Within the first 100 rounds, the original rail came loose. Here is a good place to interject what many have mentioned regarding Savage quality control. They either ugga-dugga too much or not enough. Fortunately, I did not need much counter-dugga to untorque the factory brake like this forum poster did. The optic rail was a case of not enough ugga-dugga from Savage. In any event, the MDT screws are a little bit more robust than the ones from EGW without becoming too long to interfere with the action cycling. I'm genuinely curious as to why Savage went with EGW when they were not shy about using almost exclusively MDT furniture, because EGW is probably the most entry-level of the entry-level tactical upgrades. Mounted on top is my sighting system, the Trijicon Credo 4-16 magnification, 50mm objective, 30mm tube, green illuminated MRAD-based reticle, and second focal plane. I bought it on closeout when retailers were clearing Gen 1 Credos to make room for the 2.5 to 15 models. I originally wanted to use the Credo 4-16 on an MRGG build, but I just never got around to building my MRGG in 308 because life happened. The glass is perfectly serviceable for my use cases. My biggest complaints are noticeable chromatic aberration and illumination that washes out in bright daylight. The scope is mounted using Vortex-branded sequence-matched rings, and they are the lowest height available. Look at that clearance. Thread engagement is among the best I've ever felt. There's tight tolerances, precise machining, and absolutely no need for Loctite. The scope caps are Vortex defenders, and that's it. That's everything I've changed from the factory rifle. The rifle ships with a 10-round MDT AICS pattern magazine. I enjoy the satisfying spring sound when cycling slowly, but I find PMags to be more reliable, especially in cold weather. 5-round and flush fit options are available. Savage advertises the rifle at just under 9 pounds in 308. Mine weighed 9 pounds 4.5 ounces out of the box. With my current configuration, I tipped the scale at almost 13 pounds.
Now we get to what most of you are here for. How does the rifle shoot? We choose bolt-action rifles because they often outshoot gas guns. Here are the key mechanical differences contributing to this increased accuracy. There's a zero-tolerance lockup in bolt-action rifles. The bolt, receiver, and chamber and cartridge relationship in a bolt-action rifle can have a much tighter fit, but a gas-operated rifle requires looser tolerances and clearances for reliability. This leads to lower probability of absolute concentricity of all of the components during a gas gun's firing cycle. In a bolt-action rifle, the cartridge, bore, bolt, and even the firing pin tip are perfectly aligned, which allows for ignition of the primer in the exact same place of the cartridge that's also in the exact same place every time. In a gas-operated semi-automatic rifle, the firing pin floats within the bolt, which floats inside a carrier, which floats inside of a receiver, introducing multiple points where alignment can deviate by fractions of a millimeter. There are also barrel harmonic considerations. A bolt-action barrel is a solid, untapped tube. Gas guns, regardless of whether they are direct impingement or piston-driven, cannot be truly free-floated because of the need for a gas port, and the barrel-nut handguard relationship affects point of impact depending on how the rifle was rested while obtaining initial zero versus subsequent supported shooting positions. There are other considerations like striker lock time versus hammer systems, but we can discuss them in a future video to save on this video's runtime. So why 308 though? I unfortunately did not get chronograph data as I'm shooting factory ammo, but most listed velocities for 308 rounds should be a little faster than your testing, as most factory ammo is tested out of 24-inch barrels, because even today, those will be the most common ones sold at Walmart to hunters, and the old Army's M24 had a 24-inch barrel. But why 308 versus any other caliber? 308 is still the best compromise between affordability, paper accuracy, and terminal performance. If you're shooting exclusively off of a bench, then 6mm projectiles give you better ballistics coefficients, have lower recoil, but will cost more in dollar per shot. All modern short-action centerfire rounds should have satisfactory terminal performance for hunting North American herbivores at common ranges. What's more important is shot placement and bullet selection, i.e. soft point or OTM. One case where 308 may be better off the bench is high volume suppressed shooting.
Shooting heavier 4 caliber projectiles at higher velocities is common in the 6mm domain, and you may get more shot stringing and groups opening than if bullet/caliber/velocity relationships were more tame like in 308. One consideration I do not think you have to make is round consolidation, e.g. you already have a gas gun 308, so it'll be better logistically to have your bolt gun be also 308. However, ammo availability is always volatile, so diversifying calibers insulates you from random price spikes. Rifle maintenance is going to be a single paragraph in this overly long assessment, as its takedown is simple. You just press the lever, pull the trigger, and remove the bolt. The bolt assembly is straightforward as well. You just use the hex key.
You see, it's actually going to be very hard to mess up the reassembly because this piece is on rails. Or it should be. It'll click into place on rails when it's properly aligned. That's the channel there for alignment, and the bolt fits together like a Tetris piece. The Savage 110 Precision is extremely accurate out of the box. Shooting suppressed with the Huxworks Flow Range Suppressor, I shot 3 6-round groups, all under a quarter mil, about 0.8 MOA at 100 yards. The 20-inch 1 in 10 twist barrel easily stabilizes bullets up to 220 grains, but my best consistency came from 168 grain Sierra Match Kings, with my best 6-shot group measuring about 0.6 MOA. These targets were hard to score, as this was about my third layer of paper on top of the target backer, so some rounds look like they outright keyholed. I was lucky that there was a high-vis sticker behind this one, because that's certainly a keeper. Even if we counted the outer edge instead of the bullet center, those are excellent groups for factory ammo, if I do say so myself. And yes, I did adjust my windage to the impact rightward after this group. Other ammo that I've had success with is the Federal Gold Medal Match Burger OTM 185 grain Juggernauts, and these claim to be one of the heaviest bullets that will cycle in a gas gun using 20 round LR 308 pattern PMAGs. These rounds shoot fine. I got a nice 5-round group, including 2 bullets in one hole. Measuring about 0.6 MOA at the widest, 6-round groups are fine as well. However, these bullets are actually very sensitive to small nicks when attempting to rechamber. For example, if you forgot a chamber flag was in it and nicked around while chambering, it's probably a pull. I'm not proud of it, but I've shot a lot of nicked and outright bent AR rounds. I wouldn't do it for the highest pressure match loads, but for economy grade ammo, when you have a little bit of pressure overhead, those projectiles went downrange fine. The 185 grain Juggernauts, though, because of the feeding specificity of the bolt action, won't chamber with the slightest nick. Maybe you guys shooting these out of PMAGs in gas guns will have better luck. Please let me know. Regardless, these rounds sing for you when single loaded instead of mag fed, and they're the only rounds I've tried that I've noticed a significant difference when single loading compared to mag fed groups.
Trigger-wise, the Savage AccuTrigger is much revered, but Geisley AR triggers have absolutely spoiled us. The break is consistent and light, but not as crisp as a Geisley trigger or even a $300 Walmart Remington X-Mark Pro trigger. There is also a tilting amount of overtravel. Not everyone will love the blade safety, which functions almost identically to Glock's safe action system. It's essentially a virtual 2-stage trigger. You take up the blade, then hit the wall, then break. This design is necessary because the pull weight can be set so light, and while it may feel odd at first, it does work. Adjustment is done via the included trigger tool. Do not bottom out the spring when adjusting it. Doing so can introduce reliability issues, including the trigger tripping when rechambering. Of course, not the tank safety. The trigger isn't bad, it's just fine. And I don't dislike it enough to roll the dice on an aftermarket trigger. If you do have a personal favorite, drop it in the comment section. The extraction has been flawless. Ejection, however, was weak for the first 100 rounds. I cycled snap caps for about 15 minutes straight to break it in. It's fine now, but I won't blame you if you want to put in an aftermarket extra power ejector spring. But now we're revisiting the question, why Savage over other platforms? First is user serviceability via the barrel nut system. If you can work on an AR barrel, you can service a Savage 10 platform. There's also a tighter action to chassis interface because the receiver screws are more robust than the ones needed for a Remington 700 action. The action cycling is probably not going to be as smooth as on an Remington 700 or a Tikka, and all of the above are probably only going to be 1/8 as enjoyable as a control feed surplus Mauser, but out-of-box accuracy performance is non-negotiable on the Savage. The whole point of buying a Savage is to plug and play. Remingtons have a larger aftermarket, and the most group-conscious shooters usually build their rigs from the action up regardless.
But also, why this Savage? Why the 110 Precision? I like to explain the Savage lineup using a car trim analogy. For example, we have a Mazda CX-90. The trims are Select, Preferred, and Premium. We have the Preferred trim, which has many features including rear parking sensors that we would have added anyway if we bought the Select trim. The base 110 Tactical is your entry-level trim. It runs, it's reliable, and it gets you on the road. Most shooters could buy it and be perfectly happy. But like a base car trim, you'll eventually notice things it doesn't have, and you'll start wanting to add them yourself. The 110 Precision is the mid-range trim, the sweet spot. It includes many of the upgrades you would have added anyway, like the MDT chassis, the better ergonomics, the adjustability, and a better quality barrel. Much like stepping up from a base trim to a preferred or premium package, you're not paying for gimmicks, you're paying to skip future purchases and hassle. The Elite Precision is the fully loaded trim. You've got a heated steering wheel, ventilated seats, panoramic roof. They're all very nice, but many of those features don't meaningfully change your daily driving. Yes, it's objectively better, and yes, it's more accurate on paper, but unless you're pushing extreme distances or chasing diminishing returns, most shooters won't actually use the additional capability. That's why I think the 110 Precision makes the most sense for most people. It's not the cheapest, and it's not the flagship. It's the configuration where Savage did the thinking for you. Here's the value proposition. Savage wants over $1,500 for this rifle depending on caliber. The street price typically lands between $1,300 and $1,400. It's worth pointing out that these simply aren't the good old days anymore, which a Ruger precision rifle could be had for $1,000. Those prices are gone and they're probably not coming back. What's actually surprising is that while AR-15s, even premium builds, have become more affordable relative to wage growth over time, premium bolt-action rifles haven't. That makes very little sense considering semi-automatics are mechanically more complex. The explanation is easy even if it's conceptually stupid. Economy of scale. CNC manufacturing made AR-15s and their components dramatically easier to scale to demand. The platform standardized, modernized, and exploded in volume. Bolt-action rifles never benefited from the same level of standardization or mass adoption, even though they're simple machines. So, paradoxically, the more mechanically complex system, the AR, became cheaper while precision bolt guns stagnated or increased in price. Full disclosure, I bought my rifle for a hair over $1,000 out the door, maybe totaling under $1,000 if you're considering stacking credit card rewards. I do have to be careful with naming particular stores because of YouTube algos. They tend not to like it when you mention where you can purchase firearms. But think of a professional bass fishing emporium. The $1,000 price tag is because of member discounts and a blemished chassis, but the rifle definitely came unfired. My first cleaning of the barrel and chamber showed slight browning. I don't have a picture of what those patches look like, but I did recently take delivery of a Roscoe chrome barrel and a Ballistic Advantage stainless steel barrel, and the patches look the same brown, so it's probably just some preserving oil left in the bore. But this bore, man, it is super shiny to clean. After 100 shots, it only took 4 passes with these Otis patches before they started coming out with literally no residue. So back on topic. Even with a blemished chassis, I'm actually thrilled with my purchase price considering what these go for year round. So would I pay the usual street price?
Probably not, because that gets you pretty close to more modern builds like a Seekins or Aerosolus. The Elite Precision recently went on sale for $1,500 in 300 PRC, and that is probably an even better buy than my Blim base purchase. So if starting over, what would I change? I'd likely go with slightly higher scope rings to align recoil more directly with my pectoral muscles instead of my clavicle. In conclusion, the Savage 110 Precision is not the newest, flashiest, or smoothest bolt-action rifle on the market, but it is honest. It delivers real accuracy, real performance, and real flexibility without demanding a custom build or endless tuning. If you want a rifle that shoots extremely well straight out of the box and still leaves room to grow, the Savage 110 Precision earns its place. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like rating, subscribe, click on my affiliate links, and drop your questions or trigger recommendations below. And of course, Happy New Year. Happy 2026. The best is yet to come. If you just discovered my channel in the past year, I'm very happy to have you along. And if you've been with me since the beginning of when I started making YouTube videos where most of my content was video games, I'm equally happy to have you along. Thank you for all your support.